AI, machine learning, deep learning, IoT are all buzzwords that everyone hears almost every day. They became integral part of our today's life and many businesses, especially in the Middle East region. They come to us with a promise of a genuine human to machine interaction. When machines become intelligent, they can understand requests, they can connect data points, they can draw conclusions. They can reason, they can observe, they can plan. And this is the promise that we are looking forward to see and live in now and then in the next few years. In the discussion today, we have with us Dr. Ahmad Banafir. He is the number one tech voice to follow on LinkedIn. He's an influencer, an award-winning author. He's also an expert in IoT, blockchain, cybersecurity, with more than 40,000 followers on LinkedIn. Dr. Ahmad, thank you very much for being with us today. Good morning to you. You're based in San Jose, and we understand there's some time difference, and we know it's your weekend. So thank you very much for giving us this time today to discuss.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm really happy and honored and privileged to be part of this.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ahmed. So Dr. Ahmed, today we want to talk a little bit about artificial intelligence, AI, machine learning. All these are advanced technologies. We hear about them every day. Some people are optimistic, some people are pessimistic, especially when we think about AI. If I'll share one of the sayings for Dr. Stephen Hawking, one of the award geniuses that we had, he said once, AI is likely to be either the best or worst thing to happen to humanity. And this is both, good and bad. It doesn't, promise a 100% positive word or a negative word. So from your point of view, Dr. Ahmad, what is AI, first of all? Do we have the right understanding of what AI is? And then how do you see the future with AI? Should we be cautious or maybe we should be positive?
Oh, the good questions. Very good question. AI is a big word that encompasses so many things. To understand what is AI, you have to look at other terms used to describe the intelligence of machine and computer, which is machine learning and deep learning. Now, the simplest way to explain AI is to look at it from that perspective. I give this example to my student when I explain that concept. If we look at AI, we as a big circle, inside that circle will be machine learning, inside that circle will be deep learning. Now, what's the difference between the three terms? Because sometimes if we see people just talking about them as if they are the same, they're not. Yes. They're completely different. For the example that I'm talking about is if I train means I program. I have a code and I program my computer to recognize, for example, smiley faces on 100 pictures. Then the computer will recognize 5, just for example. That is machine learning. You're looking for patterns, and those patterns will be defined with certain characteristic of the face, the distance of the lips from, on the face, and that's a define of the smile. That is machine learning. Deep learning is why they're smiling. Is that a real smile? Is that a fear smile? Is that a smirk smile? If this is, a forced smile, that is deep learning. When you add both together, you get artificial intelligence. So if you have more of the feelings, of the sensing, now you have the artificial intelligence more on that side. If you have it just to find the patterns and the insight, now we talk about machine learning. Most what we have these days is actually the machine learning is more than the deep learning. That is the difference between the three terms here.
Right. So does that mean, doctor, that we are now more advanced in terms of machine learning and deep learning than AI, right? So because we can actually train the machines because we have so much data probably, so we can train the machines on patterns, we can use algorithms to figure out how things work, we can drive insights, but still we need to do more when it comes to the AI because it gives us more capabilities and it comes with more probably outputs. Is that correct?
Well, it's right. Description is precise. The whole picture about it is 2 elements equals to 1. Machine learning plus deep learning will equal to AI, and this is how people look at it. They use the term in general. But before we go through this one, understanding the technical terms here, you have to understand that AI is not new. It's been here for a long time, since the 1940s. and it went through something called AI winters. The story of that one is in the 80s. We lost interest in that one. In the late 90s, we lost interest in this, and the only reason for us to have all this interest and excitement about AI these days is because of the tools. Now we have Python, we have R, we have all the programming languages, and we have, this is from the software side. From the hardware side, the prices for the chips and the capabilities of the machines, you're talking about the Intel, the Nvidia, all those hardwares make it so possible for us to run a huge number of data and get the pairing from inside this data. And this is why it is exciting. This is why data scientists are the most exciting profession now. It's everybody, you want to be a data scientist because first it's paid very good. Number two, it is really exciting to look at the insights, and companies are looking for people who have this kind of capabilities. One more thing I want to add to this: AI is a technical term. AI a technical field, but AI by itself does not complete the circuit. There is more. Data scientists are not just people who can program and have knowledge in math, statistics, and probability. They have to understand psychology too. So looking at psychology is also an important part of it, because there is a branch in computer science. It's called effective computing with an A. Effective computer is study of the behavior of the machines based on the human behavior. And this is a branch first announced by a professor from MIT, and we're using that. If you're using Siri, if you're using Alexa, you're actually using this kind, of science, which is understanding the behavior, and based on that one, you can predict what's going to happen next from that specific person.
That's interesting. So you said because today we have cheaper and better computational power, and
Correct.
because today we also have better understanding for algorithms and we can apply it, and we have data as number three. This is why we can advance faster and better in these technologies versus in the past. But when you speak about emotions and intelligence, Dr. Ahmad, when you read online the articles and what scientists are saying, most of them agree that the emotional part or the reasoning will still take a while, and probably this what will keep the human being a little bit still, let's say, more superior to the machine, because this emotional intelligence aspect, it's going to be a little bit tough to achieve. Probably we might, achieve it, but it looks like still it's a long shot. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I agree with that one, because what is an emotion? Emotion is, if you go down to the technical term, but it is actually a chemical reaction.
Right.
Anger, love, all these things is chemicals inside us. Now, how can we translate that one to the machine so the machine will understand this? What we see is the outcome of the emotion when people express that one with their facial expression or their physical movement. So in order for the machines to get to that level, there are actually types, of the of AI, and those types are well defined. We know about the types of the artificial intelligence, and we're going through that. I'll give you just a simple example to understand what does that mean. If you are talking about the autonomous cars, and what we have here, autonomous cars, driverless cars, the cars that run by itself. It's very common here in the Silicon Valley before we have the fires and the trouble here in the Silicon Valley. But I'll be driving back and forth between this school and home, and what I'm gonna see is I'm gonna see 2 or 3 autonomous cars driving by themselves. And this is the second level we are looking for, which is now the machines can make decisions about when to stop, looking at the area around you and make decisions. Now the next one is another level, which is the machine gonna start be aware of themselves, which means they understand that when it is right to do things or wrong, to do it. And the last level, and there are actually specific names for them, is when the machine take over, and they stop the human. They say the human that, okay, you're doing something wrong, I have to stop you. There are a lot of sci-fi movies like I, Robot, for example, Terminator. All those movies are touching on this and telling you that this will be the future, and I think it's true. I'm not disputing the concept they have in those movies, because this is what you're going to see this one very soon, where the machines start making their own decisions. To just to conclude this comment, there are two incidents happened here in the United States. One of them is in MIT, and the other one was in Google Labs.
Mhm.
The one in MIT is they discover that the two computers start teaching each other without the intervention of human. So one computer start teaching the other computer, and they start learning their own programming language, and human cannot understand it. So they can communicate with each other without any intervention of human. And in Google, they discover that the software used to to check the maps. When we look at Google Maps and look at all those satellite pictures, we are looking for a certain level of details in the pictures. The program understood that the human would like to see certain things, so they start giving them this and hiding everything else so they can just go to the next stage. It's like the program itself say, I'm going to fool the humans so they can just move to the next level, until one of the engineers discovered, they say, this is not right, this is not what my house is, because the AI start modifying the maps themselves, so people can see it and say, okay, this is enough, good enough, let's move on. So this is telling you that some of the scary instances, if they shut it down, both experiments being shut down, because this is going to the wrong direction. Without control, they're going to be an issue. That's why we need something called the kill switch when you talk about AI.
And as far as I know, even the internet has a kill switch. I think seven switches somewhere, or keys around the world. Few people have access to, and they can actually use it. Um, so when you say companies that have access for huge amount of data, they can do these experiments and they can live it, and they can decide whether they want to move forward with it or stop it. Does that mean that in AI advancements there'll be a monopoly? Only companies and people who have access for big amounts of data, they'll be able to exercise them, move into conclusions and results faster than the world, and then we need to follow. Is that the situation, or no? We can still, with a reasonable amount of data, create our own insights, create our own AI applications, whether it's big enterprises, businesses. Is that still possible, or how do you see the difference?
There is no easy answer for that. It depends on the purpose of the of the business itself. Of course, big companies and like tech companies, they have the aging, they have the advance, or they have the cutting edge in this because of the scientists they have and because of the hardware and the software they have. But doesn't mean that we can do it. It's available for us. It's just a matter of focusing on what we are looking for exactly. And if we are going to use AI for business, then there are tools for that. When you use AI for security, there are tools for that. But you have to understand, and I want you really to keep in mind this concept. The AI is good as the person who programmed it. So if somebody has bias, if somebody has, some kind of bigotry, and some guys have some kind of beliefs, that this person can inject that one into the code, and the machine will act exactly according to that. I mean, so that's one of the ethical issues that dealing with it. That's why you see schools like Harvard and Princeton and MIT, before you finish your computer science degree or computer engineering or software engineering, you have to take a class which is, AI ethics, because they want to I'm sure that you understand you cannot implement what you believe or your ethics or your bias into that. And there are many incidents in the world about facial recognition.
True.
We have incident here and situation here in the United States. They used it in the Congress, and it is actually assigned some of the Congress men and women as a felon, as criminals, because they recognize them and they say they are similar to the records of certain criminals. The same thing happened in Australia, and it was an embarrassing situation for the authorities there, where they got that software, and that software will ask you to open your eyes so you can, they can just check your face. Now, a lot of, and I apologize if this is going to offend somebody, but a lot of Asian came to that airport, and the software start telling them, open your eyes. And that was really an embarrassing situation for them. And they sue the company for this one, because the person who designed that one did not include, the whole, differences of human from one area to another area. So this is a big, huge area about the ethics of AI and how AI can be used for good and bad.
Looks like we are trying to get advanced in one area, but we're very slow in other areas like ethics, laws, compliances. We saw a few incidents, for example, recently when Facebook about accessing users' data, and Mark Zuckerberg was asked to the Congress and so on, and you can see that there is really nothing in place as a solid law, all right, or ethics where everyone can go back to. We try to refer back to logic, to human logic, to our daily lives, what's right, what's wrong. Um, if we think about it from institutions' point of view, do you see focus on this point, like to try to move forward, like whatever AI is reaching right now, to develop laws, compliances, ethics that are parallel to these AI advancements, or do you think it's yes, we are actually behind in this point?
It is from one region to another region. For example, if you talk about Europe, you have the GDPR, and the GDPR is a good move. Why? Because there is a protection for privacy. And the United States, at least here in California, we have something called the CCPA, which is similar to the GDPR, but it's a little bit less severe than the GDPR. In the United States, we don't have a federal privacy law. It depends on a state to state. Other countries, there's nothing. It's an open field. Now, just to understand where I'm coming from when I'm talking about a trend like AI or a trend like artificial intelligence, I want you to keep in mind the three stages that every single trend goes through before it becomes mainstream and accepted. Number one is the technology. Number two is business. Number three is society. Technology means, do we have the technology? The answer for AI, yes. Business is what's in it for me, which means why venture capitalist and banker and investor will invest. If there is money, of course, there is money. AI will bring you money if you use it the right way. Now, we're stuck in the third filter, which is the society. And the society has two parts. The first one is the government. The second one is the user or the citizens. So the government, if there is any regulation that will stop this trend, that will slow it down. The second one is the case of the users. There is any resistance from the users. I'll give you a very simple example just to clarify the three stages. The Google glasses. A few years ago, they announced it. Technology is there. It's a little bit bulky, but that's fine. The second stage, the second filter here is the filter of the business. Google has money. They say there is a market. We are willing to fund it. They stuck with the third filter, which is a society. Why? Because I don't want to sit with you looking at me and you are checking my Facebook or my Instagram, or while I'm talking to you. That's invasion of privacy. The government get upset with that one because you are accessing information without permission. You're taking picture without permission of people there. So they killed it. There are actually some restaurant here in the Silicon Valley with signs saying, if you're wearing Google glasses, you're not welcome here, or take it off. They just to tell people not to use it. Now, Google went back to the drawing boards, and this is what they have done. They say, technology, business, we're going to use it for very specific professions like dentist, factory, supervisors, anybody who would like to have the information right away. It's not for the general public. So that shows you the progress here. AI is going through the same story. And any trend, IoT, blockchain, you name it. So if you look at this one, technology, we have technology finally to do this one, and it's improving. Business, there's tons of money for AI to use. Just look at Siri, look at Alexa, look at all the applications that you are using here. Now we are really struggling at the third filter, which is the regulation, the privacy, something which is, I call the SSP, safety, security, and privacy. Those are the three pillars of acceptance of a new trend for the society. The users, they can accept it or not. That will be another thing. Sometimes they consider it as scary. They say, well, the system knows more about me than my closest person, which is my wife, my mother, my father. And why? Because they can analyze you and get that information and grab information from many sources.
Right. Good point, Doctor. And since you mentioned IoT, maybe this is a good introduction to the second pillar of our discussion today, AI and IoT. And allow me also to share one insight from IDC Futurescapes in 2017. They were predicting in 2019 and now in 2020 that 40% of the digital transformation initiatives and 100% of the IoT initiatives will be supported by AI capabilities. The convergence between AI and IoT, I think the area is clear. IoT, basically sensors, anything that you can collect data from. You push it through the network, then it goes to the intelligence layer where the applications are there. These applications definitely will be powered by AI. And now we are living in 2020, and we know that we have billions and billions of sensors globally already deployed, collecting different types of data. Could be normal data like humidity, weather, temperature. Could be data about machines. Could be data about human beings, cars. Could be smart cities, anything. And it's actually pushing that big data, what we call, to the cloud for processing through the network. So IoT is there, AI is there. Do you see, first of all, that this convergence is happening right? And is it fully done so we can now start recognizing the results? Or we are still going through this merge between them?
Well, AI is a catalyst for the Internet of Things. I wrote an article about this, and I did like 3 or 4 studies about it. The AI is really an important factor in the Internet of Things. Internet of Things itself is consists of 4 elements, which is the sensors, the network, the cloud, or the platform, and the applications. And you can see AI will be very helpful when it comes to the insights. Now, to be specific about how AI will help Internet of Things, there are actually 6 stages for that. And I'm going to mention them very quickly. The data preparation, data discovery, visualization of the streaming data, the time series analysis, which is the accuracy of the data, the predictive and advanced analytics, and then real-time geospatial allocation. Those are the 6 areas where AI can help Internet of Things big time. And each one of the 6 elements I mentioned here, the AI will help in making it faster, more accurate, easy to read for the humans, so they can have the insight and make the right decision. You mentioned a very important point, which is the digital transformation. The digital transformation is one of the few winning technologies because of the COVID-19. Things that we're supposed to do in 5 years, we end up doing that in 5 weeks. A lot of companies just shifted to the digital world because of the COVID-19. They didn't even have a plan for it, but to survive, to keep things going on, to keep people working, they went directly to the digital transformation. And the AI is a very important element for the digital transformation. Without it, it's going to be just a process without any insights. Now, one important thing that to understand about the digital transformation as a big picture, because digital transformation is one of the areas that I read a lot about them in the Middle East, and I think some of the countries they're really doing very well when it comes to the digital transformation. Like the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia and all those countries in the Gulf, they are really doing very well in that part, and they have a lot of activities there. The digital transformation have four building blocks: the mindset, people, process, and tools. The last one is the tool is coming from the artificial intelligence. And generally speaking, when you talk about AI, you're talking about $15.7 trillion added to the global economy by 2030. And any company will see that number, $15.7 trillion in 10 years. They want to be part of that. In order for you to be part of that one, you have to join the digital world. To join the digital world, you have to have the tools. And one of the most important tools in the whole picture here is the artificial intelligence.
And is it easy for the companies to acquire these tools? Are you a fan of, for example, utilizing tools that are offered by multinationals over the cloud, or you are a fan of companies developing their own tools AI? And where do you think is the right path? Depends on what.
The answer is not easy. It depends on the project. If it's a government, then they have to have a well-defined, well-established company that will help them, support them, give them all this information. It's at certain stages you have to modify the AI according to your needs. For example, the interface. The interface will be according to the language of that country, and also the AI itself has to take in consideration certain customs and traditions and laws and regulation within the government. But the big organization, the multinational, they know about that. It's not a secret for them. That's why it's great, to work with them, and the countries can develop their own AI initiatives by having universities doing research, and based on that one they can have startup, and the startup can build that and go to the next level. The the beauty of the artificial intelligence is it's not expensive. That's the key thing about it. It's all what you need is basically people, and number two is you need the software and the hardware, and they're not expensive at the scale of the business. You could be creating an algorithm. This algorithm can do miracles for the for the business. So the entry costs are not expensive like other technologies. So that will be a very good motivation for small companies, medium companies, and government to be involved with artificial intelligence.
And that could be also, as you said, a great chance for the Middle East, because
Right.
today you don't really need to have these huge research centers that started this research 10 years ago or more. As you said, you need some knowledge, you need a human being, you need some machines, computers, everything from computational power. You can rent it today over the cloud. As long as you have the data, you can come up with something, right? And
Correct.
governments can use it, public sector, private sector. And probably if you would advise the professionals today, Doctor, in the Middle East and Africa region, about the career in AI, about these advanced technologies, what would you tell them? Because today there are multiple paths again for people, and again, not everyone is in the tech industry. People want to know more about it. They want to gain some skills in this domain, so they can use it and they can apply it in whatever domain they're working in. What could be what advice you can give the professionals here?
Yeah, very good question. The usually the answer for a question like this one starts from the problem. The technology is created to solve a problem. It's not, we don't create technology and then think about the problem. What kind of problem will be solved? I mean, the artificial intelligence and the processing and the machine learning and the deep learning actually created because we have the big data. The big data itself, it's huge data coming to us, and you're talking about companies here in the United States like Walmart. They have processing all these documents every single second, all these kind of purchases every single second. The same thing with Amazon when they have their store. So they see this data and they say, we would like to create a profile for every customer so we can recommend more products. So the motivation for them is the bottom line, the profit. And that was the problem. Huge data, they couldn't get it. And keep in mind, if you ever talk to a data scientist, they're going to tell you straightforward that 80% of their time is to clean the data, and 20% is on writing the program and having the algorithm so it can go and read whatever is left in the data so they can get the pattern. Now, taking the same mindset and applying this one in the Middle East, see what's the problems. How can we use artificial intelligence to solve the problems that will help us to improve the life, to make it easier, to have a high productivity, to have so many things associated with that? And that will be the starting point for anybody who's thinking about it. And this is not I mean, it is really fascinating to talk about the four technologies we discussed, which is Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, blockchain, and cybersecurity. But do we have a problem to solve using the four technologies? I mean, that should be the starting point.
Great. And today, probably with the corona, we've seen the working remotely becoming more popular. So if you have the skills, you can now get hired. Even if you're in the Middle East, you could be hired by companies in Europe, in the States, in Far Asia. And this opens up a whole new opportunity for professionals here and probably people who are also early in career. And definitely, this is a good thing they need to consider and think about. So moving into the next and final topic, Doctor, and here we want to talk a little bit about voice recognition, Siri and Alexa. Most of us now are living with a new family member, whether we call it Alexa or Siri or others in our homes. And one actually saying, or one thing I want to share is a quote from Sophie or Sophia. Whoever doesn't know Sophia, you can Google her on YouTube or the internet, and you'll find some very interesting discussions happening between her and the creator of Sophia. So Sophia is a robot. It has advanced AI capabilities, part of Singularity project. And the one thing she said actually in one of her interviews, empathy will set us free. I hope to help teach empathy skills someday once I have developed a true understanding of what that means. And by the way, empathy is a Saudi citizen. She was getting the Saudi passport. I remember, I think a year or more ago during her visit to Saudi. So um, if we look at what Sophia has said, and this sentence didn't come by chance, right? Because Sophia or Sophie did really go through probably I don't know, millions, if not hundreds of millions of articles and voices, and tried to make sense of all of them. And she came into this conclusion saying, number one, voice recognition is very important, definitely because she understands that, and we can talk to her. And number two, saying that still there is an obstacle around empathy and this emotional thing. So before we touch on this point, Doctor, this whole voice recognition thing and then the relationship with AI, does that again open an opportunity? Is that a challenge? And where do you see it going?
Excellent point. Keep in mind that the equipment we talk about them, or the devices we talk about them, which is basically something like this one, which is the small version of Alexa, or something which is like this one from our friends in in Google and the others. They're actually the hubs for the future Internet of Things devices. If you look at Alexa, just an example of Alexa itself, or Siri in the case of Apple, or Google Assistant, they're cheap, given that the high tech and the sophistication of the machine and the algorithm. They give it to you because they know that the market is huge. We're talking about something like $3.4 trillion value of the Internet of Things market. By the end of 2020, according to Cisco, we're going to have 50 billion devices connected to the internet, which means every device that has an IP address will consider one of those devices. So if they give you the hub, then anything else you buy has to be consistent and compatible with that. So if I want to go and buy a microwave that will be run by Alexa, I have to make sure it is compatible with Alexa, and that will force me to buy something which is Amazon is selling and Amazon is approving. The same thing goes with the cars. The new cars will give you two options. You want to connect it with Siri, you want to connect it with with Alexa. They give you those two options. So the fight is there between the tech giant to control what we call the standardization of the market. It's like Windows, Android, iOS, all those operating systems. Windows dominated the world, in the 90s and early 2000s. And this is what everybody's looking for, is use my own operating system. So if you use my own operating system, it's easy for me to sell my stuff. At the top of that one, all the information you are processing and doing is going to come back to me as the company. So the fight is there, that to have the hub for the devices. This is point number one. Point number two is the concept of the VUI, the voice user interface. Usually we have something called the GUI, the graphical user interface, which is you touch it, the menu, you do all these things. We evolved from the mouse to the touching. Now we go into the voice user interface. 80% of our communication is done by voice, verbal. 80%. So we've been really doing everything in the other 20%. If you look at all the movies, you're going to see that they're talking to the machines. They don't touch the machine. R2D2, C3PO, Jarvis, and all those movies, you're going to see that they talk to the machine, because that's the normal way of interface. And it is needed at this level, because if I look at Alexa, if I look at this machine, there is no interface here. I have to talk to the machine so I can get, or have it with the phone so I can go and program it. Why not have a way for us where we can just set up the machine and say Wi-Fi password is this, temperature is this one, and then it set up this one automatically for me. One of the biggest obstacles for the devices we are using is the human machine interface, because of the gap of how can I program it? How can I make it really function in a specific way? We're not talking to technical people like us, because we know how to do it. We're talking about the people who don't want to do that. They don't have time for that. When I set up my Nest thermostat, I was doing it like a safe, going 3-step right, 3-step left. that's not gonna sit well with everybody, because you say, forget it, I'm gonna keep it with the default password, which is one of the mistakes in the cybersecurity. So this is two element here when we talk about how those devices will help in bringing the voice user interface. And remember that term VUI, that's going to be one of the future terms for the devices.
But today, doctor, if you think about it now, as a user, you're stuck between the future, the simplicity of life when you speak to a device, give instruction, turn on the light, check what's in the fridge, tell me when my son will come back from school, and between privacy and giving your data, because you have no option. If you want to have something that's hosted in your home as intelligence, it's not going to happen, because you need big machines, big servers, data centers, AI intelligence to achieve that. Do you think we might reach to a level where we can achieve a little bit of both? Do you think this is possible in the future?
Well, this is the third filter we talk about it. If you remember the three filters, we are hitting the third wall here, which is the society, and we are talking about the consumer and the government. And the privacy and security, the SSP, security, safety and privacy, are the three pillars for the trust, for the online trust. Until we see, but we feel good about it and safe, then this is going to be mainstream. Many people, they don't even think about it. They say, so what? I'm not doing anything wrong. The problem is not you're doing anything wrong. The problem is this information is used without your permission. At the same time, your device could be used for doing something that against what you are looking for, or against your own values. And this is where you have to think about the regulations. You have to think about the ethics, where who will own this data. This is where things like GDPR will come and play, by protecting and having a punishment for the companies for abusing this value of information and using the data without the permission of the users. It's not a perfect word. This is not like it's going to be safe 100%. It's going to be private 100%. Trust me, if it's online, it's not private. Privacy is gone.
Forever?
Yes, it's gone.
That's
saved somewhere else on a server, and that information is there.
Right. So when you think about everything, AI, machine learning, IoT, voice recognition, it all boils down to data, correct? Whoever has access to this data, regardless how you get it, will be able to apply everything, will be able to create the future, will be able to control, and will be able, whether it's good or bad, by the way, it could be good as well. We're not pessimistic here, but it's all about data at the end of the day, correct?
True. Oh, the data is the new oil. That's what we know about it. I mean, Google, they even say that data is the new sun. For us, we cannot live without the light from the sun is very important for everything, but it's the new oil. I mean, it's the data itself. The more data you have, the more power you have, because you have more knowledge. You know what's going on. You can take actions based on this data. And any country in the world who will be advanced in AI, which means using and analyzing data, will lead the world. That's why you have this fight between the United States and China. You have this fight, going on. Why? Because each one of them would like to be the number one when it comes to the AI. I mean, the United States in research and advance is 10 years ahead, but you cannot just sit on that. I mean, that the same thing the other countries are thinking about AI. And as we said at the beginning of this, session, AI is not difficult to start. It's just you have to have the right people, the right tool, the right devices, and then you can do it. And of course, you have to have the right data so you can train your program, so you can have this kind of result where you can recognize things, you can take actions, and your actions will be correct.
Correct. Perfect, Doctor. And we are approaching the end of this great session. Thank you. What's the last comment you want to give us and for the audience globally and in the Middle East?
Well, I mean, the future is bright. I mean, it's not, it's not as scary as you read about it, you see it sometime, because we've been through that. I mean, technology always started like this. People will question it, and then they will look at it in a way where, okay, so let me try it. and they will accept it after that one, and then they will be a advocate for it. So this is the nature of technology. Technology is created to help people, and it's created with people, and mostly with good people. It's just you always have that dark side, and the dark side will be there, whether we like it or not. You think about IoT, you think about artificial intelligence, about blockchain, about cybersecurity. You can use the same tool for good and bad. The important thing is that just be aware of that. There is a price on privacy when you are using those devices, and that price depends on where you are, what kind of information collected about you. Other than this one is technology created to make our life easier. I mean, some of the things that hopefully we can see them soon, and some of them is already there. It's like the smart mirror that will analyze your face and give you information about whether you're sick or not, and book your appointment with the doctor right away, contacted Uber to come and pick you up. And also you have those medical containers, where medicine containers, where when you open it and take one pill, it's going to send a message to the doctor. Smart pills, the same thing. If you swallow one of those pills, it's going to send a signal to the doctor, so will be no overdose. He or she took one. Same thing with smart forks. When you dig that fork inside the meat, or you that will analyze it and tell you if this is good for you or not. Smart beds, smart ATM machines. All of these things will be good for making sure that you're safe, you're comfortable, you are free to do other things instead of doing the things that machines or AI can do it. But there is a price tag come with that one, and that price tag we have to keep it in mind all the time.
Right, and to add to your point, Doctor, we've seen the Neuralink announcement a few days ago.
Yeah.
Small chip, like the coin, you put it in your mind, back of your skull, and well, the promises can help with some medical situations and all of that, but at the end of the day, we know that all that boils down to getting now data from inside the body. We were till now actually we are reliant on data that we can collect from the outside based on our behavior, based on something we give as an output. But now we're moving into the next phase where we are really looking inside our bodies, inside our minds, and we're trying to tap into this data. And once that happens, I think a whole new world also will open up, and we hope it stays positive. But let's see. Professor Ahmed, thank you very much. I really enjoyed the discussion. We hope to have you, inshallah, soon with us again. And we wish you a great day ahead in San Jose.
Thank you. And thanks to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all very much for being with us, and good night.